Chapter 9. The Truth Behind a Facade. Julian's apartment was a study in contradictions, every surface spotless, every line clean and geometric, but somehow lacking the warmth that should come with a place called home. Floors or ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Portland's skyline, while Malarest furniture arranged with mathematical precision created conversation areas that looked like they'd never hosted an actual conversation. Chloe stood in the entryway, taking it all in with the same analytical eye she'd applied to their bar designs. Everything was expensive, tasteful, and utterly impersonal, like a high-end hotel suite designed to impress rather than comfort. This is very, she searched for the right word, clean. Julian emerged from what she assumed was the kitchen, carrying 2 glasses of wine that probably cost more than her weekly grocery budget. His shirt was wrinkled from their encounter in the cooler, his usually perfect hair disheveled, and for the first time since she'd met him, he looked human rather than created. "You can say sterile," he said, handing her a glass. "Everyone does." "I was going to say lonely." The admission slipped out before she could stop it, and she saw Julian's carefully neutral expression crack slightly. He moved to the massive windows, staring out at the city lights rather than meeting her eyes. "It serves its purpose. Clean lines, no distractions, everything in its place." "Including you?" The question hung in the air between them, loaded with implications neither was quite ready to examine. Julian took a long sip of wine before answering, "Especially me." His laugh was hollow. "Would you like the tour? It won't take long. There's not much personality to see." Despite the self-deprecating tone, Chloe followed him through the space. The living room flowed into a dining area that looked like it had never been used, complete with a table that could seat 8 but was set for no one. The kitchen was a chef's dream. Professional-grade appliances, marble canters, knife blocks filled with blades that gleamed like surgical instruments. "Do you cook?" Chloe asked, running her fingers along the spotless granite. "Sometimes, when I need to think." Julian opened the refrigerator, revealing it to be meticulously organized and mostly empty. "It helps with precision, following recipes, measuring ingredients, controlling variables. Sounds more like chemistry than cooking." "Maybe that's the point." The bedroom was equally impersonal, a king-size bed with hotel white linens, matching nightstands that held nothing but a lamp and an alarm clock, and a dresser whose surface was completely bare. No photos, no personal items, no evidence that a human being actually lived there. "Jesus," Julian Chloe breathed. "This place is like a witness protection safe house." He flinched at the assessment, and she immediately regretted her bluntness. But instead of defending his choices or deflecting with humor, Julian sat heavily on the edge of the bed, his wineglass dangling from his fingers. "You're not wrong," he said quietly. "I've been hiding for so long. I'm not sure I remember what it feels like to actually live somewhere." Chloe sat beside him, close enough to offer comfort, but far enough to give him space to retreat if he needed it. Hiding from what? Julian was quiet for so long she thought he might not answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "From disappointment, from judgment, from the constant feeling that I'm not good enough to deserve the name I was born with." The vulnerability in his admission made her chest ache. This wasn't the arrogant mixologist she'd sparred with at the competition, or even the passionate partner who just claimed her in the walk-in cooler. This was someone stripped of all pretense, raw and honest and achingly human. "Tell me," she said simply. Julian set his wineglass on the nightstand with exaggerated care, as if the simple action required all his concentration. "The Blackwood name means something in this city. My great-grandfather was a federal judge. My grandfather served on the Supreme Court of Oregon. My father sits on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, and my mother's family founded half the cultural institutions in Portland." Chloe began to understand the weight he'd been carrying, the impossible standard he'd been measured against his entire life. "My sister Sarah is a neurosurgeon at OHSU. She saves lives, literally makes life, or doth decisions every day. My brother Michael is a constitutional law professor at Lewis and Clark. They write laws, interpret justice, heal the sick." Julian's laugh was bitter. "And then there's me, the one who makes drinks for a living. You create experiences." I serve alcohol to people with disposable income. The words came out harsh, loaded with years of internalized shame. Every family gathering, every social event, every time someone asks what I do for a living, I watch their faces change. The polite smile, the how interesting that means anything but. Chloe wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong, but she could see the truth of it in his posture, the way his shoulders curved inward as if protecting himself from blows that had been landing his entire adult life. Is that why you push so hard? The molecular mixology, the artisanal everything. If I can just be exceptional enough, maybe they'll see it as legitimate. Maybe they'll understand that what I do requires skill and creativity and passion. Julian's hands clenched into fists in his lap. Maybe they'll finally be proud instead of embarrassed. The admission broke something open in Chloe's chest. She thought about her own family, her father who'd worked construction for 30 years and never once questioned the value of honest labor, her mother who'd raised 4 kids while managing a diner and never apologized for getting her hands dirty. The contrast was stark and heartbreaking. What about Cassandra? She asked gently. Where does she fit into all this? Julian's expression darkened further. Cassandra was everything they wanted for me. Right family, right education, right social connections. When I was with her, I could almost pretend I belonged in their world. But? But it was all performance. Every conversation, every public appearance, every moment together was carefully curated to present the right image. She never saw me, just the version of me that looked good on her arm. Chloe remembered the way Cassandra had touched Julian's arm at the showroom, the possessive intimacy that had made her own territory marking instincts flare. She wants you back. She wants the idea of me back. The Julian who fit into her aesthetic, who made her look sophisticated and cultured. He finally looked at Chloe directly, his eyes bright with unshed emotion. She never knew about places like Murphy's, never understood why I want to serve beer and shots when I could be grafting molecular masterpieces for food critics. And now? Now I know the difference between being seen and being known. Julian's voice was rough with honesty. You've seen me fail, seen me struggle, seen me sweaty and imperfect and trying to keep up with your world, and you still. He trailed off, unable or unwilling to finish the thought. I still what? Chloe prompted gently. You still look at me like I matter, not because of my name or my connections or my potential value to your career, just me. The raw honesty in his voice made her throat tight with emotion. Without thinking, she reached out to cup his face, her thumb brushing away a tear he probably didn't realize had fallen. You do matter, Julian, not because of what your family thinks or what Cassandra wants or what anyone else believes about your worth. Her voice was fierce, protective. You matter because you're brilliant and passionate and brave enough to risk everything for something you believe in. I don't feel brave. Brave isn't about not being scared. It's about being scared and doing it anyway. Chloe shifted closer, their knees touching. You left everything familiar to build something real, with someone who challenges everything you thought you knew about your craft. That's pretty fucking brave in my book. Julian's smile was tremulous, but genuine. When you put it like that, I'm right about most things, Chloe said, earning a surprised laugh from him. Including this, your family's opinion doesn't define your worth. Your ex-girlfriend's expectations don't determine your future. The only person whose approval you need is your own. And yours, Julian said quietly. I need yours too. The admission hung between them, vulnerable and honest. Chloe felt the last of her protective walls crumble, the possessive anger from the cooler transforming into something deeper and more terrifying. You have it, she said simply. You've had it since you showed me how to taste whiskey properly, since you put on that apron at Murphy's and served drinks without once complaining about the chaos, since you chose to build something real instead of just impressive. Julian leaned forward until their foreheads touched, his breath warm against her skin. I love you, he said, so quietly she almost missed it. I know it's complicated and probably stupid and definitely inconvenient, but I love you, Chloe. Her heart stuttered in her chest, fear and joy warring for dominance. Julian, you don't have to say it back. I just needed you to know. After everything with Cassandra, after the way I failed to defend us, I needed you to know that this isn't temporary for me. You're not an experiment or a rebellion or a way to piss off my family. His voice was steady now, certain. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me. Chloe kissed him then, soft and slow and full of all the words she wasn't quite ready to say out loud. When they broke apart, she could see her own feelings reflected in his eyes. Love and terror and the kind of hope that was dangerous enough to change everything. We should probably talk about what this means, she said eventually. Tomorrow, Julian replied, pulling her down with him onto the pristine white comforter. Tonight, can we just be? For the first time since she'd known him, Julian's apartment felt like a home, messy and imperfect and beautifully, gloriously human.